Okay. Right. Well, here we are. Another day, another
Here we
dollar,
are.
another horror movie.
Do not say hi. I say hi. You say hello. You've got a shitty joke for me?
I don't know, do I? Is it gonna be a problem if I have a shitty joke for you?
Yeah, you always have shitty jokes for me.
Okay, well, I guess I do, but only if only if
You don't
you're.
have to say it. I mean, don't feel pressured.
Okay, well, why do uh, why do zombies never eat comedians?
They haven't got any brains.
No, they taste funny.
Oh, fuck's sake, bro.
Oh no, this is not happening. Um, you know, where do most zombies live? Where do they live? Can you guess? On
Okay,
dead end
tell me where.
streets, duh.
Oh yeah, of course. How the fuck didn't I know that? Fuck's sake, bro. It's too early for these kind of jokes. This shit is what the French call lackluster.
Oh my god.
Les incompetents. Yeah. Sorry, my fucking house is a madhouse at the moment. People are leaving it, which means my dogs will never see them again.
Okay, well, let's get into it then.
Okay.
This fucking train
Hi,
wreck of an
I'm a piece
episode
of
so
radiation
far.
coming off the. Wow. Okay. Hi, I'm a piece of radiation coming off the planet Venus. Bet you didn't expect that in this episode. And I'd like to be in the sequel.
And I am a ghoul that just wants, chocolate covered beef patties. And
Julia Roberts.
see, you did it. You did the thing. And you know me, fucking hate sequels, so that's not gonna happen.
Julia Roberts and Dead Pit.
Ew.
Whatever. So we're doing Night of the Living Dead. Night of the Living
OG.
Bread.
What is it with you and these puns? Stop it. You're offending. You're offending my
Bread.
sensitivities. You're offending my sensitivities.
Brains. Oh my god, this is so good. I could go forever.
We have Night of the Living Dead, bro. I was going to say the OG, but that doesn't make sense. The original Ghoul Fest with dark eyeliner and weird makeup in black and white.
And bare asses.
And bare
Yeah.
asses.
This is where we this is, yeah, essentially the birth of the modern zombie. This is where zombies step out of voodoo and become what they're known as today. And it's actually crazy when you look at the zombies from this movie, which are caused by like this is a strange reason. We'll get to that when we get to that. But this is pretty much like the archetype, like the figurehead of what zombies are still to be to this day. Pretty much the only thing that's changed is heavier gore and the zombies are a little bit faster. But other than that, they've pretty much stayed this exact way. And like everything from the zombie genre now is owed to
George A. Romero. Damn right.
Yeah.
Deep friend of the pod, George A. Romero. We absolutely love you, and we wouldn't have half the shit we see on television, on screen, if it wasn't for you. We really, really wouldn't. So, really appreciate.
Okay.
1968 classic. Yeah. Where do you kind of go from there? I guess Did you know? I guess I should probably start with this actually, because this was more of an interesting thing to me as to when I was actually kind of going into a little bit of research about this. Was the original idea for this movie was an alien comedy. So I'm guessing this is where the whole radiation thing from Venus comes from.
From Venus.
Because in early 1967, George A. Romero were working together with like John Russo, like with a lot of people, and they were basically looking for a lot of like ideas and brainstorming with a lot of things, and like through the efforts, like they eventually produced Night of the Living Dead, but the early concepts were very, very different. Russo
But you hear that it carries over in the soundtrack and everything. The soundtrack is very quintessentially like 50s, like space alien movie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's they initially thought of making a horror comedy about hot rodding alien teens who would visit Earth, meet up with human teenagers, and generally cause mischief with the help of a cosmic pet called quote unquote the mess. But the budgetary constraints made this concept impossible, so instead they dreamt up the idea of a boy who runs away from home only to discover a field of corpses under quote-unquote glass, which were rotting to the liking of alien creatures who would eventually consume them. But then Romero was like, "Nah, mate, that looks a little too fucking stupid." So he latched onto the idea of the flesh-eating angle, and eventually just thought, "Yeah, we'll just get some weird, people, and then they eat each other." And that's eventually how the Night of the Living Dead idea came around.
It is weird when you think about like because this movie is so influential. It's one of those things where it's like you kind of can't imagine having like modern horror without it. It's kind of a given, and like because this like story is so kind of like plain and simple, it's become like very much so like the basis for like even outside of the zombie thing, it's almost become the basis of like modern horror. Like it's very definitely like a pillar that holds modern horror up even to this day. The idea of like final location being like in a house, a group of survivors together. Pretty much every zombie movie after this movie owes everything to this movie.
Yes, yes. This movie.
And like, it's when you think about just how much like could have been different if they had changed or like not changed things. It would have been crazy down to like casting or down to like you said, story where it's like, and like that's the thing. I would still have fucked up a fucking story from George Romero, but aliens and teenagers and all that kind of shit. That still would have been great, but like. God, this really is horror history right here.
Yeah. It set the standard for like everything zombie wise to follow it, because eventually like what you would have to do in developmental story wise after this, you would have to continuously either add on to the lore of what George A. Romero had set down, or you would need to like completely reinvent what George A. Romero had done, which is what you kind of get with what is it, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead. Sequels. I know, but like, what it is like it adds further more and more and more and more on top of it in order to surpass what the original was.
We don't get that much of a change until we don't get that change until Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead is where we get the idea of zombies eating brains, or the idea of zombies being
they can also talk
a little bit more like we think. Yeah, exactly. And like we get a great scene in Return. Where zombie she's just a torso
on the slab,
like on a slab, and she's basically like, we need brains to make it like stop hurting, because like we're alive but we're dead, so we can feel ourselves raw.
Yeah,
which is like it's weird. It's like humanizing zombies, but it's like I like the idea that in this movie it's very like zombies are monsters. They're not sympathetic. They're not sad. They're just hungry and they just want to eat you.
Yeah. And they're also not counted, like, it's the one thing that George A. Romero has reviewed constantly is, like, that he would have coined the term zombies with his zombies, and yet in the film, they're only referenced to as things or ghouls, which is
ghouls,
really interesting.
Ghoul to me implies something a little bit more, like, ghostly or, like, goblinish, like typical kind of small impish gremlin type,
Oh yeah. This film was actually also heavily inspired by the book I Am Legend. It was also like George A. Romero said that he like basically ripped off the idea of the house setting and like armies of undead like coming up after them. They were
Yeah.
like he later recalled that Romero had returned to it about using at least 40 pages of the book as part of Romero's script for Night of the Living Dead, which is just really interesting. And it also includes like the cemetery scene. The cemetery scene at the beginning of the film is also the beginning of the I Am Legend book. So like you could literally draw the parallels between the two, and you can just be like, no, it's an original concept. What are you talking about?
The material is great though. It's the idea that it's like zombies aren't they're not smart, they're not quick, they're not
Oh, but they are though in this film.
ish, like almost like base level primitive smart, but it's like the idea of zombies, the horror of zombies comes from the fact that they're so numerous that like
Yeah.
you can outrun zombies, you can very definitely outsmart zombies, even like these type of zombies who are seen to use kind of not necessarily tools but kind of like weapons, like the idea of like picking up a rock to smash in a car door,
Yes.
that kind of thing, or the idea of like clustering together and being able to overwhelm people with numbers rather than like brains.
Yeah.
I think like that's kind of like the entire horror of the zombie genre, where it's like it could end up being like literally you against the entire world.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing of like the world's like shortest like horror story is like the last man on earth sits down to read a book or whatever like that, and someone knocks on his door. You know, it's like that horror of like you versus the entire earth, you know.
Yeah, I think it's just it's definitely like sort of like a baseline kind of thing to kind of go off of, especially with this film, because like especially like that first kind of, I don't want to say kill, but like when you get into that scene, and I mean you have a zombie who's literally like using the door handles of the car to get in. Like a zombie doesn't do that in films nowadays. They just bang helplessly on the glass to try and get in at you. So like there's definitely like a change. There's a change the whole way through the history of zombies, especially like George A. Romero's zombies, like from Night of the Dead to Return of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, all of that kind of thing, where you definitely get, like I said, like a build up of either intelligence or even the idea of when they eat brains, they consistently get smarter, or they have the memories of the people they ate as well. So like it's just more interesting to kind of come across, you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of the opening scene, Barbara and Johnny, they're going to visit who I remember it being their uncle, but it's their dad.
Yeah.
Gone to visit their grave out in Pittsburgh, I believe.
Yeah.
They're like like in the countryside. And I love Barbara up until a point where Barbara becomes basically non-existent in this movie. I love the 60s hair, the little coat, you know. And again, like I kind of always enjoy like a sibling kind of banter, or like a sibling pairing in a horror movie, kind of a horror movie especially.
Yeah.
Because I think when you kind of remove the weird like romance aspect out of like a pairing, I don't know, it's a little bit more interesting to me. It's like we've seen it a lot less. You know?
We actually, the last time we spoke about something like this is we got this in Jeepers Creepers, and we were talking about the differences of removing a sexual relationship out of quote unquote the main character to go into an area of, like, I would say like horror rules that don't exist or don't apply to them because they're not in a sexual relationship. And I actually forgot that this pair, Barbara and what's his name again? Johnny. I knew it was Johnny. I don't know why I didn't think it was Johnny. And the fact that they were, I remembered them as a couple, not as brother and sister. You know, for some reason, I don't know why, but yeah.
But then when you watch it, they are so quintessentially brother and sister. Like they might as well be like just like slapping at each other.
Yeah.
Like they're so jabby. They don't get along at all. It is also kind of very Trish and Derry. You can almost see like the influence of this little pairing in the classic car. I think it's a Camaro. You know, you can kind of see like where Jeepers Creepers might have been like making a reference there.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically that they have to go out here every single year. They don't even remember what their dad looked like. So he like obviously died a long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, and they're basically like kind of like chatting shit about like, yeah, well, like mother's like it only takes 5 minutes. And it's like, yeah, but it takes fucking 6 hours to drive up here and 6 hours to drive back. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I really
no
do.
between...
Out of mostly kind of everything, this kind of first scene, and then not most of it, just kind of like those quintessential iconic shots of parts of this movie, like the dead standing outside the house from the point of view of Dwayne Jones's character, and then the ending, obviously that bleak ending. But like this opening kind of scene is like very much like it's just quintessential like setting shit up for like what you're going to get at kind of like for most of the film,
yeah,
which is essentially them bitching back and forth, which is, you know, basically Ben's character with everyone else in the film, while fucking Barbara's catatonic. We'll get to that, but you get like the introduction of that first zombie and that iconic line of "They're coming to get you, Barbara."
Yeah. I love that, and like that's the thing. I think like a lot of people could look at this as very camp, very silly kind of, but like I think like the opening to this, bar a couple of little shots here and there, are actually quite effective. The idea that they're like talking, and like I've always said this, I really enjoy this in movies where the horror isn't like focused upon straight away, and it's kind of
in the
background. It kind of builds in the background.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly focused. The idea that they're like talking, and this man who like, and he just looks like a man, and this man is also like, like what a like distinct honor to be like the first modern zombie in cinema to appear on screen.
Yeah.
This man kind of set the like stiff elbows, kind of almost Frankensteinish.
I was just about to say that.
And then he's just like, and there's one of them now. And then he like Johnny like like just like gallops past this guy back to the car, like basically like kicking up his heels.
Yeah.
And then Barbara like puts her hands in both of her pockets, looks down and like walks in the direction of this man, and they like just like get attacked. It's just like getting like groped by this fucking zombie who's like not even like actually trying to like fuck with her that hard. He's kind of just like pawing at her like with like the bottom of the wrist, very like original House of Wax kind of thing. And then there's like kind of a tussle. I was going to say Barbara. Johnny comes back over to like defend his sister, whatever, like that. And they have like a very like, excuse me, like they might as well be like, you sir, get off of her. Like it's very polite. They kind of just like frolic,
like the way
each other's company.
The way
just like throw themselves to the ground, and Johnny's dead.
And Johnny's dead. This is just like the weakest, crappiest death I've probably ever seen, you know, in like horror history. Is they literally just tumble to the ground together. Now I know it's meant to like imply that Johnny smacked his head off of the gravestone, or at least I think it's one of those slabs that cover
a grave. Weird. They just barrel roll. They're already on the floor when they hit the grave. They just barrel roll, and it hit it with like the side of his like stomach. Like they hit him with right here. The head like, is nowhere, like even in frame, and he's just dead.
He's just
Barbara's
dead.
Oh shit!
Props.
Fuck this. Barbara loses her shoes.
Yeah. Oh, this was actually something that I really did enjoy, was the fact that when she does fall because of her shoe, she kicks off the other one immediately in order to get away from the ghoul / zombie / stalker / killer, because like he Romero, in my opinion at least, tried to get rid of the damsel in distress idea. With when it comes to women at this time in representation.
Her into a can of soup? She might as well not even be there.
No. But for at least that moment, I really do appreciate that she had the intelligence to literally fuck off those heels and run for her life. Because I mean, her brother is just killed in front of her.
Her contemplate like, should I grab the other one or should I just lose both of them?
Yeah.
But also in my head, I'm like, it would cost you like the same amount of effort and energy to just snatch another shoe up off the ground.
Yeah.
Like it, you know. Um, but it is creepy. I do think, like, even outside of like the zombie aspect of this opening scene alone, the idea of, and now she's alone. Now it's just her and this man.
Yes.
Alone, and he's just like trotting after her. And they're actually not as slow. I think there's like kind of there's a period between this movie and like the actual 2021 modern zombie where the zombies really, really significantly slow
Yes.
down.
Yeah.
Like these zombies are not necessarily distinctly slow; they're just kind of stiff.
Yeah.
Whereas like when we get to like Return of the Living Dead, like a couple of years later, we do get the very like arms out in front, the like brains kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, it's very.
But the idea of this man is kind of like trudging after Barbara, and she's alone. It's very scary. It's like it's quite effective, very threatening.
It is because, well, number one, he's a lot taller than her, in a way. So obviously, number one, he's physically imposing. But the fact that when she like gets into that car and like she has the smarts, like I'm fucking so glad that she does it. When she immediately turns around, she locks both sides of the car door in order to make sure that like that guy cannot get in. I absolutely love it because, I mean, from what we get from her, like for the rest of the film, she's practically, like you said, a can of soup. She's catatonic. She really kind of pushes the whole kind of, I'm gonna work to make sure that I don't get the same, or I'm gonna, like, you know. So I really do appreciate it. And again, it comes down.
Well, that's what she kind of does, and we kind of almost, I think it's almost a detriment to Barbara, the fact that they showed her being so quick and very like only in like a matter of like 10 minutes being like very survivalist, being like, okay, I just gotta run, like I have to run, I have to like make it somewhere. And she's kind of just running along the countryside, but we get like she goes to like once she gets in the car and the zombie's like attacking the car, it's only one at the moment, but then she like pulls the handbrake or whatever like that and like rolls herself down a hill just to like kind of get herself out of the way, because at this point the zombie has picked up like a rock and like smashed the car window in, but then the car just crashed like maybe like 22 seconds later. The car crashes
like 15 feet down the road.
Like right over there. But it works. Everything she does like leads her to the house.
She gets like she's like, I literally just call it the chase scene, because it is just Barbara running from technically the same zombie, but you do see in the background, like in these far fields and all of this kind of thing, that there are zombies. Well, when I say zombies, I mean there are people dotted in the backgrounds that you kind of maybe notice, and like
I think that's very, very, very effective to show that it's like this is already going on. Like we get the idea like this hasn't reached cities or a bigger, more populated areas yet, because like we said at the start, this is like the countryside. They've driven for hours out to the middle of here. Which is why there's nobody around except for this farmhouse. And they do this quite a lot now in more modern zombie movies, where we see like in Shaun of the Dead. I always say Shaun of the Dead, as funny as it is, it's also a very, very well made horror movie with the small setups that they have. One zombie bite the head off a pigeon, or the people outside the pub making out, and then we see that she was actually biting his neck. I think those kind of scares, again, also all owed to this movie. I think they're so effective to show the small rise of like what's going on.
I suppose it's more due to, like you were just saying, like the small settings. It's more isolation, because then you know you're alone. Like there's no one around for miles that would be able to help you, and the kind of like existential terror of that realization definitely shows in her face, because like when she gets to that farmhouse, like she's desperate to bang on the door. She's like, you know, trying to get in and whatnot, and you can just see that terror like on screen. Like she knows she's fucked because she's in the middle of nowhere. There's no one going to help her at all.
And it really does annoy me again that they kind of turn her into like a completely nothing character, because like she gets in and that's basically the end of Barbara. She's in the entire movie,
Yeah.
only physically.
Yeah. The lights are on, but nobody's home for like the rest of the film. You know, this woman.
No, and it's kind of sad because I feel like largely she's one of two, even more than the zombies. She's one of two icons you think of when you think of this movie.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, she's kind of not even there.
Yeah, she does this
except for comedic relief, except for like unintentional comedy.
Yeah. She does this kind of like, I want to say like she runs from room to room, back and forth in a manic way to, first of all, find out if there's anyone living in that house, which she does. She finds out that just up the top of the stairs there is a rotting corpse that has been there for God knows how many days. And
which is shocking to see in '68.
Yeah, it's
like to actually show the gore. I know George A. Romero had the note of like with this movie, we wanted to like show you everything.
Yeah,
like that was the difference. And like that's the thing, that still would have been fresh and exciting then.
Yeah,
you know, like, it would have been shocking to have seen the gore. Like we see flesh being like pulled from bones in this movie, and they don't cut away.
Yeah,
you know.
Speaking of which, that flesh. This is another like fun fact for you or whatever. But they basically used roast ham, number one, and then because obviously it was black and white, they said it didn't matter about the color of the blood because it would appear dark on screen anyway. So what they did was they used roast beef and roast ham in order to create flesh, and then for blood they used chocolate sauce. Like
very Hitchcock. Hitchcock did the same.
Like, okay, chocolate sauce.
The same thing for
that's
the
cool.
Psycho.
Yeah, the little girl. For the life of me, I can't remember her name. Yeah, when she was eating. It's her mother, right? Her father. When she was eating.
When she walks in, we see the arm being eaten.
Yeah, like that's just a rack of like ribs with chocolate sauce on it. Like it's just, she said that she felt uncomfortable doing it because it looked creepy, but she said as soon as she got it, she was like, yeah, it's cool, I liked it, the taste was fun. So yeah,
I think it's actually very, very effective. I think like that could have looked very hokey, but like and they use it very, very well. There's a couple of scenes where like it's kind of just like meat draped on a person, and because it's black and white, they kind of blend together, and we get some good shots of seeing people like literally just like what appears to be biting an arm, or like biting a chunk out of somebody's arm, and it looks good. Because we get the like tearing the flesh, and like I remember like when I was younger, there's a scene where I think it's where we first see like a bunch of like a group of zombies, like eating flesh, and it freaked me out as a kid because it's not fake at all. It's like they literally are pulling flesh from bones with their teeth in their hands, and it looks great. It still really holds up, and a lot of the effects in this movie still hold up very, very well. I think they were smart to not kind of like reach above their means. Like they really used what they had very, very well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. These types of movies, especially in that era, used very little to the best of their abilities, and it has to be recognized because if you like with Dracula and things like that, no matter how campy, we absolutely love it, but it's a milestone that really kind of sets the bar for everything else to follow after it, and this film is definitely no exception to that rule. It set the bar.
Exactly, like we have what we have now without any of those.
Exactly.
Like we have no gigantic 200,000 zombies running at a building without a rubber like bat on a string.
Yeah.
You know, it's like everything has at someone.
It's true. This is very true. I actually just want to point out specifically about this film. When we were watching this film, you sent to me a link to the YouTube video. Now, basically, the reason why you're literally able to watch like multiple versions of this film literally anywhere for free is because it is in the public domain because of errors in the credits at the beginning and at the end.
For years and years and years and years, this movie was part of the public domain, which is why it's in the background of so many movies. If ever characters in a movie go and see a horror movie, like on a date in a drive-in, it's Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Or if somebody's watching a horror, even I think in Halloween 2, they're watching Night of the Living Dead on TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, for years, this was basically just free to use. But yeah, because of like a tiny little fuck up, like somebody didn't cross their T's and dot their I's in a contract or there.
There's
But
also
yeah,
something...
the rights finally went back. Judith O'Dea says she finally got paid for this movie, like properly, only a couple of years ago, because it started like actually earning profits again.
Yeah. They originally, the distribution company, like the Reed organization, things like that, they originally wanted to be under the title of Night of the Flesh Eaters, which was what was planned, but the lawyers representing the original movie, The Flesh Eaters, threatened a lawsuit, so the title was changed to The Night of the Living Dead. And the reason why it was in the public domain for years on end was when the title changed, the copyright notices were not added to the opening titles or the end credits. Though the filmmakers have fought it in federal court, the film was, up until 2019 apparently, in the public domain. So yeah, it's pretty interesting to find out, due to a little technical error, like you said, like dotting the T's, cross the I's. It was literally that. It's pretty interesting.
Actually having it be that way made it all the more iconic because of how often we see it in like media, like just in general, let alone like horror, you know?
Yeah.
I think like The Living Dead exists within the universe of so many horror movies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like I even said the night watching it, I was like, dude, like this soundtrack is used in so like very the way Scream used Halloween. It's like people had this movie playing in the background of a scene and like just using the score for free, which is insane. It's insane.
I really do appreciate this film, specifically for everything it is and everything it stands for, with regards to horror in general, because there's a lot of kind of like breaking boundaries and breaking kind of the rules and just kind of forcing out the whole kind of stereotypes and things like that, especially with our next character, because we have Ben, played by Dwayne Jones.
Ben, the most handsome man.
Like 1960s, the 50s and 60s in particular were very much about the whole kind of segregation. You know, there's a lot of civil rights and all of these kinds of things, and I really, really appreciate. Now, you told me, I think it was the last time we were on air, that originally it wasn't a black man that was hired. It wasn't.
Yeah, no, it wasn't written as a black character.
Yeah.
George Romero basically said that when they were holding auditions, that Dwayne Jones just happened to be the best actor.
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with his skin color.
Yeah.
I also think like this is a thing that kind of led to this movie being iconic, is the fact that like this is where we start to get representation for people that where he's not a stereotype. He's literally the leading man.
Yeah. And
he's the one that takes charge. Everybody except for one or two listen to him and take his word. And but I think like that extra layer really, really just like adds to the whole thing, that it's like, in a way, like we'll get to that with the end, but it's like, again, in a way, and it's still a storyline now, even in movies like this, like humans ultimately end up always being the monster, even if we are literally the monster and also like figuratively the monster. And this dude is like a brilliant actor.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He works really, really well.
He's very strong. He's very like you said, he's the leader of the pack, quote unquote, of the survivors that hide inside this house, especially the ones that don't show up until at least 45 minutes into the movie. But when
we've been downstairs this whole time.
Like, why the fuck are you down there? Especially when Barbara does, like, because Ben shows up, he's not in the house, he just shows up later on, and he sort of takes charge of her, along with like, you know, boarding up the house, and like, in terms of creating a plan. But you can also see, like, I don't know whether you felt it this way, you can also see her kind of reticent.
Oh, she's afraid of him.
Yeah.
We get the sense that, like, she's almost just as nervous to be in the house with a man of color as she is to be, like, outside with undead white people.
Yeah. It's very unspoken, but you can feel it.
Sucks, but, like, oh yeah, and, like, it does suck, like, by modern standards, but it's like these things are, like, products of their time, and I think, like, if they tried to like completely skew it any other way, would have just been kind of inaccurate. And I think it really does add a whole other level of, like, prestige to this movie.
Yeah.
That there is these tensions. And now, to be honest, Barbara is the only one who kind of, we get the sense of her, like, she's not hateful, she just seems very kind of apprehensive and a little bit like, oh shit, like, if I have to, kind of thing. And like, we do get other characters challenging Ben later.
Yeah.
But it doesn't read to me
as racial tension. Yeah.
The challenges later don't read. Sorry, I literally have a knife in my hand. I'm just fidgeting with a knife. It doesn't come off that way to me later. But with Barbara, you definitely get the sense of her being, like, kind of. It's like, almost shit. Like, in her, stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, like that first kind of.
Stuck between a dead and a black place. In her head.
With her especially, like, I don't know whether you notice it, but it's definitely that as soon as she kind of spots him at the door, she doesn't do the whole look him up and down kind of thing, but she does, like, you can see it registering on her face as soon as he, like, kind of barges through the door to kind of, you know, nail it up or whatever. But, like, you can definitely, it's definitely there. And especially, like you said, like, with characters, including the dad later on, you can definitely feel that there is that tension builds up kind of a lot. I mean, it's never spoken about, but you can feel that kind of palpable, kind of racial tension that does go on in that. And especially with the ending, obviously.
It's all kind of inferred with everybody else. Like, it's never
just
in case you're, like, apprehensive about here. Yeah, exactly. There's no slurs in this movie.
Yeah, there is nothing like that. No.
Outrightly, we don't get any outrightly racist behavior that's supported or shown to be good. The only, like, outrightly, and even at the end, the ending, I don't take that as these, like, quote unquote hick town people. I actually don't take that as a racial thing. I just think with the time period, Martin Luther King having been killed, like, right around this time, I think the imagery itself speaks for itself. It's very loaded, and they didn't have to explain it and tell it out. I think George Romero kind of tricked the audience to get what might or might not have been there. He claims kind of up and down that, like, this has nothing to do with race. But I think it's used very well to its advantage. They used what they had at the time. They used the time itself. And I think, like, this movie is very quintessentially 60s. Very quintessentially American. Americana 60s.
Dwayne Jones actually rewrote some of his character's dialogue. The character of Ben was originally written as an angry, rough truck driver with a somewhat crude dialect to kind of reflect that. But when Dwayne Jones came aboard, he began revising a lot of the dialogue, I think, because he said he'd recall that he believed Dwayne himself, like, upgraded most of the dialogue, as he felt the character should represent himself in the situation that he finds himself in if it was real life. And I agree, like, you know, obviously, like, looser feels like nowadays, if you were to get a script, you just get handed and be like, yeah, well, that's you can't do that. But like back then, like, actors definitely had a lot of freedom, more so freedom to kind of play around with what they were given and like really kind of put themselves into it. So like I really do appreciate that, and with what he did with his dialogue, because like again, like you don't want to kind of force a stereotype or anything like that, but like as soon as you hear like it was written,
no, this like really never comes close to it. Like the fact that he is black is kind of largely irrelevant in this movie.
Yeah, to the plot. Yeah, absolutely.
It never comes up explicitly. He's just kind of exactly the leader that you would want in a situation like this, where like he's not emotionless. He takes into account the way people are feeling.
Yeah.
We get a lot of scenes of him trying to comfort Barbara.
Yeah.
And everybody else in the house. He like springs into action, and he's not like an asshole at all. He's very, very, very diplomatic in that way, and I enjoy him. He's actually my favorite character in the movie.
My favorite character is the naked zombie. It's
oh my god, I have a dead girl joke later. Might cut it.
Oh my god.
No, but seriously, it usually doesn't stick out to me in a movie, but in a movie where everybody else is kind of like Dwayne Jones is very definitely like an actor in kind of amongst like like over actor. You know, he really stands out. Like this man is really selling it, and like I buy him. Like he doesn't have to. He doesn't really try too hard. He comes off very, very natural, and very comforting. Like you get the sense that like he would be
the best, probably the best person. Well, I mean, like almost immediately he assumes like the leadership role, and it's just like, there's fucking zombies everywhere, dude. Why the fuck have you not like boarded this shit up and like gotten a fucking gun to protect yourself? Because as soon as he comes in, he's like, let's fucking board this shit up. Let's get moving on all of this in order to save ourselves from being eaten alive. Because Barbara is essentially fucking useless. She's just sitting there. She's sitting there. She's a chair. She's a fucking part of the furniture for like the rest of the movie until she like fails to save people and then dies.
Yeah, you know, I almost not to like step on Romero's toes or anything, but I almost would have preferred, and I think it could have, like if this was being made for the first time years and years later, I think Barbara would have been the opening kill along with Johnny.
Oh, for sure.
Set us up.
Yeah.
I almost think that would have been more effective as well, to kind of show that like, oh shit, like the zombies do not play. And we do get in the 90s when Tom Savini, Daddy, when he remade this movie, which happened so much, like countless times, because it was public domain.
Yeah,
anybody could just like redo this in any way they wanted. We do get that Barbara kind of steps up and becomes a little bit more active in the 90s, which again, it's just kind of like the narrative is that like women are stronger and they're not just damsels in distress. But I don't know. She's kind of just decoration.
Yeah. She might as well be a wall ornament for this film. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like by the 90s, well, even the late 80s, you sort of started to get this kind of like real heavier movement towards, you know, the final girl being the one to really kind of push you know, saving men as damsels in distress, like completely throwing that trope on its head to really kind of thing. But definitely in this film, I would trust Ben's character and not Barbara.
As I said to you the other day, right after we watched this, I was like, this dude looks so much like Morrissey to me.
Oh,
like,
God.
Like Black Morrissey. I know you didn't realize it. No, actually what you said was, you were like, yeah, I can like see it in the jaw.
The jaw, yeah.
Oh my God, I just saw your jaw and I thought you were Morrissey from behind. Holy shit. But know. I literally wrote this. I was like, this tall glass of water. This dude is so handsome. You know?
Oh my god. So anyway, Barbara's catatonic.
Like, she's like freaking out, and he's like, look, why don't you calm down?
Yeah.
Why don't you stop the noise? And why don't you be quiet?
This is the theory now. He was so like mesmerizing to her, and like he turned her on in sexual ways that she has never been turned on in her life, and it sent her into a dreamlike catatonic state of shock.
Yeah, she's not a racist. It's quite the opposite. She's a race fetishist. Like, she has a thing. She has a thing for black dudes. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh god.
Barbara like says her like last few words. Like 20 minutes into the movie. She speaks maybe like twice in the rest of the movie. And I have notes. I have notes about the next time she speaks. It's so fucking funny to me. She becomes a vegetable for the rest of this movie.
She is watching the seedlings planted for like the entirety of people being eaten and murdered around her. That's the truth.
Just sitting there. She just sits on the couch for the rest of the movie.
She's like in a recliner, like sitting down, like hands folded in her lap, just like staring at the beige wall across from her. Like
like literally amongst every couple of scenes, like in the middle of action, we'll get somebody go over and be like, Barbara, are you okay? Just like, check on her. And like this all happens in 2 rooms. Like there's this whole house, but it basically all happens either on the front lawn, like the front porch, the actual like sitting room where everybody is, or the basement. We don't see kind of anything else. So like we get a lot of scenes where everybody's like running around and arguing and doing all these actions, and Barbara's just sitting on the couch. But she has this kind of like hysterical scene where she's fighting with Ben, and we get a quality. She turns around and she's basically like freaking out, saying that like she has to go out there and find Johnny and all this kind of shit, because she's like, Johnny's on his own. Johnny's dead as fuck, by the way. Yeah. But she turns around and she slaps Ben in his face, and he gives her a moment. He doesn't do it straight away, but he kind of like, I'm about to beat this bitch up. And he turns around
and he belts her.
He close fist punches her in the side of her fucking head, and she just goes to sleep, because she doesn't even get like knocked out straight away. She kind of just like, oh, and then like lays down, and he like carries her, but like lays her down. Jesus Christ.
This was actually something I think I pointed out to you, is when that interaction happened, I was like, well, yeah, like he just told her to like, you know, get her shit together and like get moving, and then she full on whacks him across the face, like, shut the fuck up, and then he just belts her. Open hand slap. And he just belts her across the side of it, and she faints as if like, oh my god, I can't believe a man just offended himself. But like, I just think like, again, there's
you know that like at some point in this movie, because of the time it was going to be, I was like, a woman is going to be hysterical and get slapped in this movie. You know, like if she didn't hit him first, it would have been the dad character later. He would have grabbed her and shaken her by the shoulders and said like, get a grip, and slapped her across the face. Very like, I always think of that scene in Airplane. Yeah. That one lady.
Everyone queuing up.
Everybody's lined up to like slap the shit out of her. Yeah. Yeah, it's like the nun has got like a baseball bat with nails in it and stuff. Yeah.
Someone's got a chain, like, swinging it around, like, waiting.
Yeah, there's, like, 2 monks with, like, Molotovs and shit, just, like, standing there waiting to, like,
knuckle dusters and everything.
Review Airplane on this podcast. I fucking love that movie.
Oh, God. We don't want to typecast, though, so it's okay. So the other thing I kind of wanted to talk about was the fact that, up until this point, like, I mean, they've like boarded up the house or whatever, and like there's 2 or 3 zombies like starting to gather outside the car in front of the house, and
including the main first zombie is cut off.
Huh?
including like the first zombie that we see. He's like caught
Oh,
up and
I
he's
have
there
it.
like with the rest now.
He's credited as the cemetery man. How like ominous is that?
I think he's genuinely frightening because
Yeah.
he's the only one that we get to like spend time with, kind of,
Mhm.
besides Karen, I guess. Karen being like the poster for Night of the Living Dead. Like, you've ever seen it? She's the
Dark
girl
eyeliner.
with like the black eyeshadow on one eye and hair across the other. You know, like that's like
Living Dead
the
girl, very
poster.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't be the poster that I use though, because it's the least interesting poster I think for Night of the Living Dead.
When it comes to that scene, when Ben goes out, this is something that I found so interesting. Was it introduces the idea of zombies having a fear of flames or fire, and again, like it harks back to, I mean, literally what, nearly only 20 years beforehand, Frankenstein was the one who literally walks arms in front and says, fire bad.
Yeah.
You know? And these zombies react, I mean, without saying fire bad, but they react in the exact same way. They have a fear of fire. And this man very smartly, like, chucks out, like, fucking flaming furniture to ward them away. And I think, again, like, it's
like,
so smart. Yeah, like, and they throw Molotov cocktails later on into the garden, and yeah, it's so interesting. Like, much of lore that we don't kind of originally, like, we don't have it now, but back then it was introduced in order to set up rules,
well,
but it's kind of been
quite
dropped.
the opposite now, where I actually forget exactly what movie it is. It very easily could be like Return of the Living Dead. Or like one of the like Romero remakes where like they use light, fire, and sound, but to attract zombies. Zombies are now attracted to it, so it's used as a diversion. As in, you know, like let's send a car with the alarm on fire down the road if you want to have all the zombies go that way.
Yeah.
But it's a trope, that's like kind of stayed with the zombie genre.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You think a lot has actually changed, but really not a lot has changed from this movie in particular. And it's kind of rare that we are able to like pinpoint like, okay, this right here is exactly where all of these things come from. They're not an amalgamation of things.
Yeah.
This is the original source. This is first edition 101 modern zombies. And like, of course, I don't know if we mentioned it, zombies like originally would have been like a voodoo thing, like underneath somebody, like white zombie, like that kind of thing. Where you would have been basically under somebody's spell. You know, but like that's all kind of, and like those movies were actually still very prevalent in the 60s. But we kind of get this one that kind of breaks the mold, and then everybody forgets about the
what came
zombie.
before. Yeah, I think it's definitely very interesting, like kind of making comparatives then versus now, setting up the rules, breaking down the rules and things like that, because when you get into sort of like the whole modern zombie kind of feel, number one, they're a lot more violent, they run, they sort of, they become, I want to say more stupid because they don't know how to open doors, they bang on windows, blah blah blah. Whereas when you get this one,
more numerous amounts.
Yeah. Whereas when you get this one, you
literally
get
cities full of zombies rather than countryside.
Yeah, you have them, you know, pulling open door handles. You have them, literally picking up rocks to smash in windows. You have them pulling down putting up wooden beams. You have them like ripping down wooden beams in order to climb through windows. Like, these zombies are legitimately smarter than what their modern day counterparts are. And I think it's just really, really cool. And, you know, like I said,
they're also more kind of human, where like we get like, not all of these zombies are reanimated corpses.
Yes.
We just get right around here where we find a radio in the house, where we get like, I think it was like on the hour every hour or something like that, we get like new pieces of like information to put on his zombie stat card. Where it's like,
they are eating flesh.
Here, they do this. Exactly, like, confirmed. Like all the assailants are eating their victims. They're eating the flesh of the victims, and then we get that like Yeah, this is kind of like almost like an alien virus kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
We don't necessarily get that like the bite itself or direct contact itself with the
yeah,
zombie results in you becoming a zombie. It's just
yeah.
if you are killed, and they specify if you die in any way,
You'll
you'll
come
come
back.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But yeah, it's kind of it's very much so like the basis. Like
Yeah.
it's like in its most basic form, this is what zombie is.
Yeah. I also really don't love the rationalization for Romero putting in naked zombies into his films because, of course, it would make the most complete sense. Where the most freshest of corpses, meaning those in morgues, would be completely naked. So they would just get up off the slab and walk outside and start attacking people. So
that's the slab last Friday of every month. They're here.
dum 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 dum. But yeah, it's really interesting to me because like it's not just gratuitous nudity. Like there is a lot of like amazing thought processes gone through Romero's head in order to facilitate these sort of ghastly sights that you see towards the middle and end of the film. Like it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Some of them are in their nightgowns.
Yeah, and I like that
everything.
kind of like the world building of like these people were like attacked like in the middle of, because we also get people like half dressed or people like in just underwear like in this actual same scene where we see that naked zombie where we just get like we just get ass like we just get like dead ass with no, but like with no, a lot of these zombies have absolutely no injury on them at all. So like we do get the sense that a lot of these zombies are from hospitals, are from morgues, are from kind of wherever, but we don't get zombies coming from the grave just yet.
Yes, yeah. The one thing,
not quite a thing here.
There's a really funny little piece of tidbit there, like specifically when the naked quote unquote ghoul was on set. The night the night they filmed the nude ghoul, all of Evans City found out about it somehow. They had their lawn chairs set up around the edges of the property. Judith Ridley, who played Judy, said it was funny to see the rest of the zombies trying to keep their eyes elsewhere instead of looking down at the obvious places on the nude one. I think that's fucking hilarious that when they were filming this, like you literally have zombies being like, arg, covering their eyes, and then you have people in lawn chairs like behind all the cameras just sitting there being like, I'm going to see breasts or an ass tonight.
Zombies weren't the only one with a stiffy.
It's really, really fun, and I really do love these kind of like weird facts that like people find out about these films. So yeah.
No, I don't have an erection. That's just embalming fluid. My dick isn't hard. I'm just happy to see you.
Flash. They also like during like you mentioned like every hour on the hour with the radio kind of thing. They also do confirm that you shoot them in the head and they will go down. So like again, there's another rule.
Also continue, like all the way up until literally today.
Mm-hmm.
That's still like the confirmed way. It's like destroy the head or like remove the brain. Like just like fuck it up.
Once again, destroy the head or remove the brain.
Wait, it's the other way. It's the other way around.
I always think to Shaun of the Dead when that newscaster, you know that very famous like BBC News. Yeah, Sky News. I repeat, destroy the head or remove the brain. And he's like talking about it later on. That's the best line I've ever said.
That's actually a great scene where they're like, sorry, we're just gonna like, this is basically just gonna be like us like sucking the dick of like the zombie genre.
Yeah.
See, where they're like watching that news report. And I also like watching this movie, I was like piecing together all the like not so obvious references that like have come after this.
Yeah.
That like the groom zombie from Shaun of the Dead, he walks in and they're like, oh, he's going home I think that low key is a reference to the end of this movie where we see the father with one arm.
You've got red on you.
Got red on you, and they just smash his head in with the fucking with an ashtray.
I love that. I love the T-shirt. I got wood. I think that's great.
Also, let us know if you would like to hear us review something not as straight up horror like Shaun of the Dead, something with like cross genre. I'd be like so happy to do that.
Yeah, let us know. Leave it in the comments. It'll be definitely something to commit to, and yeah, definitely. Ben discovers, this is what irritates the absolute fucking shit out of me. Ben discovers that there have been people hiding out in the fucking basement this whole time. They've been upstairs. And not even like before Ben was there, when fucking Barbara walks in, is like screaming like, "Is there anybody here?" La, la, la. And you're just like, there were what? There's at least 5 people downstairs? Are you fucking kidding me?
We're not even introduced to them all straight away.
Yeah.
Where
they come up later.
Tom, I think it's Tom, like his girlfriend, whatever her name is. Oh yeah, it is Judy.
Yeah.
Tom, by the way, in these white shorts, looking like a fat ass glass of milk. Oh my god, this dude is so fucking cute. Oh god, he's so cute. He's got like a little gap in his teeth. But they come up first. It's Judy, or it's not Judy. It's Tom, the dad, and not even the wife at first. They all just go upstairs, and they're like, "Yeah, we've been down here the whole time. We just didn't really want to come up because we heard noises or whatever like that." And there's more people downstairs that we're still not even introduced to until later. You know?
But
this is where the movie takes like a kind of a comedic turn for me.
This is exactly because like this whole like altercation between Ben and the survivors were like downstairs. But you were down there the whole time when you were like boarding up the house, when Barbara was screaming, like, and they keep coming up with excuses and say like, yeah, but there could have been them in there. There could have been more of them in here. There could be thousands in here, but
he's
we didn't
like,
want to
well, I thought you didn't hear me, and now all of a sudden you heard me. Yeah. Wow, the pettiness of this dad literally ends up killing everybody later.
Yeah.
But like,
did it get shady up in here?
That is so fucking funny to me though, because he's like, Ben is basically like, well, I'm the leader of this place, and everybody is kind of like happy with that. Yeah. He's like, well, I've decided that fuck off. I want to be the leader.
And I love
and
this.
Basically, everybody is like, okay, bro. Even his wife is like, again.
Yeah, she keeps like picking up cigarettes to have, and you're just like,
zombie apocalypse. I was like, everybody's kind of smoking a lot in this movie. They're going to run out of cigarettes before it's even like the next day. But the mother is kind of like, you did this in the last basement we were at. You know, like you remember that. You know. And a girl, I'm Karen. There's also a girl down there.
There is a legitimate Karen in this movie, and of course, like all Karens, she ends up being a fucking inconvenience later on in the film. Because she is sick. It's not declared that she's been bitten or anything like that. It's just that she's sick
in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that like she needs medical attention, and like basically we've been down here the whole time, for safety's sake, basically, until this whole problem passes. Essentially.
And I get that. I do get that in a way. The idea of kind of like the apprehension of like not wanting to immediately go upstairs and be like, hey, we're down here.
Yeah.
But also, like, I fully agree with Ben that it's like, are you like, and everybody else, even Tom is like, but if those things get in here and we're in the basement, like we're fucked. Like there's nowhere else to go. At least if we get in here,
you have a back door to run out.
Zombies never do. The zombies just never get in the house.
Yeah.
They try, kind of, but like every time they come like within a couple of feet of like the guy, they're like, "Get out of here! Here's a piece of fire!" And the zombies kind of like, and just leave. The zombies just seem like a little bit more of like like threatening. They're never like outrightly like, we're gonna get in this fucking house, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's only when a zombie happens from the inside out does all that even like go down. You know.
This is where we sort of find out, you mentioned it earlier, that due to, like, scientists are theorizing that reanimations are occurring due to radiation from a space probe that exploded in Earth's atmosphere on the way back from Venus.
Venus, yeah. Like,
I mean, could you get any more convoluted?
But could you get any more 50s? It's very, like, I love it though. And like, this movie, like watching this movie, even like in the original aspect ratio on like modern TV, it feels like very like comforting because it's very,
it's comfort food like, horror.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, it's very,
it's endearing kind of like to the times. I would say it's endearing to the times.
Yeah, and it's very inspiring. The idea that it's like George Romero kind of just like him and a bunch of his friends got together and just like invented an entire genre. And like again, like I was saying, it's weird to kind of be lucky enough to have like such a very clear start point where it's like everything about modern zombies is owed to George Romero.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, like people always say, he's literally like the father of the genre, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the idea that like him and his friends just kind of like, fuck it, let's get together. We have like a little bit of cash, we can like work. And this movie again, like, could have been filmed in color, but they filmed it in black and white because it was cheaper. Like black and white film stock is cheaper than color.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this movie's like a nice big like warm hug from '68.
Not to mention that when the whole idea of radiation is the culprit here, I can just imagine, because it is quintessential 50s 60s like schlock, because like you can just imagine them sticking up the trailer like ghouls, reanimated corpses from Venus, and you hear that woo 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 kind of sound like in the background, like with the ghoul lettering showing up. Yeah, it's literally that. Like that's how I imagine this film.
This movie's almost like if you isolate this movie from every other zombie movie and like pretend that like zombies don't become a whole genre upon themselves, this movie is sci-fi. It's almost not even horror.
Oh, it's sci-fi, like, it's sci-fi as fuck, yeah. Yeah. Sci-fi
they're kind of implying, that these zombies are extraterrestrial in a way. Like, the threat comes from space.
Yeah. It's also, like, again, like, it's that 50s, 60s, so, like, that whole... wasn't it in the 50s that Roswell was kind of a thing, and, like, flying saucers were, like, a bigger, like, almost an accepted norm threat from the Russians and like stuff like this, so like that's definitely there.
Yeah, it's like this is where we get like the space race. This is where people really started like looking past, like where like the sky stops becoming the limit, where people can like go to other things, and this is where we get kind of like this is science fiction in its like teenage years.
Yes.
Where we start to get like more of an exploration just past like straight up aliens.
Yes.
You know?
With ray guns and
kind of comes the enemy.
Yeah. It's definitely moving past that era where it's still part of like the cultural zeitgeist, but like you can just imagine like in the field in the field just beyond like these 10 zombies that are eating flesh is like a landed flying saucer with big, green-headed aliens with ray guns, like waiting to probe Ben and find out what the fuck is wrong with Barbara, that kind of thing, like that's how I imagine this being like a quintessential 50s 60s movie.
Yeah, and like outside of this even being like the birth of the modern zombie movie, it's kind of, this is where we really start to break away from the basis of horror movies and horror in general being like gothic literature or like classic like kind of story tales, and where we start to, because that's the thing, we kind of forget that it's like science is still relatively new in the way that we understand it now, then.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like modern science, and this is kind of like the 50s and 60s are like just huge turnarounds for the way that the world is.
Yeah.
So yeah, we start to get things more like the day the earth stood still, and all this kind of stuff where we get like actual science fiction, or even like you can see it very clearly with like the Universal monsters, where they stop being Dracula and
the Wolfman
and things like this. We start to move like the Wolfman. Then we get like, I suppose Frankenstein would have been kind of the first iteration of this, as in science being like science and man being the actual monsters.
Yeah. And
then we move into like the Invisible Man and Creature from the Black Lagoon, where it's like, at the end of it, you do kind of feel that like man is the
ultimate
like man is the most dangerous creature on earth.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah. I always think back to that Simpsons episode where Homer is like concocting like the ultimate evil being, and he's like throwing bits of like dinosaur and serial killer and all this kind of shit in, and then what pops out is this kind of bland generic white guy, and it goes bum 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 bum, and then he goes, surprise, the most evil thing on earth is man. And it ends.
There's like that art piece again, like this is literally just us being like, humans are fucking trash.
Yeah.
But like there's that art piece, I'm gonna hate myself for forgetting who it's by, that was put up in New York, in the New York Zoo. I think it was the Bronx Zoo, where they had see the most terrifying creature on earth or whatever like that, and like underneath the exhibit was just a mirror.
Yeah. That's stupid.
And like,
yeah.
We're gonna cut this out because I don't remember who the artist is, and I'm gonna look like a fucking idiot.
But it's true though, because that's exactly what this film kind of centers around. I know, like, obviously, like, with regards to the ending and things like that, but with regards to like Ben, and what's his name, the other guy, Karen's dad, I can't remember. Like, yeah,
I know.
He's just a dick. So
Thomas the dude with the fat ass.
he's just he's just a dickhead, and he ends up being part of the he ends up being like part of the bigger problem overall, because his selfish cowardice ends up being the reason that the house gets invaded, and why his wife gets killed downstairs by his daughter. It's like, it's the whole reason.
Literally is. And you can tell that the wife is like over this shit. She's like this already, he's fucking stealing cigarettes from my purse. But this guy kind of so stupid. No offense, but it's like, this guy is the perfect example of like that sentence of I wish I had all the confidence of a mediocre white guy. Where he's just like, well, I'm here and I want to be the leader, and it's like, and everybody kind of like, okay, so cute.
Everyone's just kind of like, shut up and sit down.
Yeah, but like, your idea was kind of fucking stupid. And like, we're kind of trapped in that there. Fucking idiot.
What's not a stupid idea is the plan that Tom and Ben concoct about their them getting away in the car by throwing Molotov cocktails from the window to distract the zombies.
Once.
Yes, true, but it's a smart idea.
So loud.
It's a smart idea, and I think if it had worked, and not by that stupid ass fucking Harry, then it would have worked, and it would have worked well. But it doesn't, and they end up like like getting blown up.
Well, like, oh god, okay, yes. So like, we basically get like, kind of the entire plan of this movie is like, outside of just defending the house itself, is like, okay, we have to get to like town hall or wherever it is, because like, we see like on the TV, because they also find a TV at one point. They also like probably like never would have actually had to have left this house, because no zombies ever get. They have food, they have TV, they don't have cigarettes now.
They're screwed if they don't.
we basically got the plan of like, okay, everybody,
Humanity
let's like make it to town.
devolves.
So that's what I'm trying to like figure out ways to get in. And like all the problems in this movie are solved like this. They're solved so quickly.
Yeah.
Where Ben arrives and he's like, there's a pump at the back, but there's no key. Then everybody comes up from the basement and they're like, okay, let's look for the keys. And then they just find the keys.
Yeah.
And they drive out. They all drive out to go to the back because it's like kind of like further down the field or whatever like that to go get fuel. And they have this plan, and suddenly Judy or whatever her fucking name is like, I want to come too, and then just like runs out of the house and like almost gets her ass killed here. And then they drive over, and then the car just like, wait, how the fuck does it even happen again? What happened? They're inside the car.
I think it's they either crash or they spill one of those Molotov things, but the car ends up getting on fire, and then boom, they're both dead. it ends so, and it's also a cutaway. It's like I watched this shot twice, 2 or 3 times, where Tom is standing there trying to get his girlfriend out of the car, and then like you hear the boom, and then it just cuts to the car being on fire.
There's a car on fire. Yeah.
It just looks so awful.
So
and also,
stupid.
not to mention, there's several times where the film was obviously like literally cut at a moment in time and then shifted back and then starts again. I noticed it with Barbara when she's in the house. There's so many times like it's just been hacked to pieces at several points where you're just like, wait, hold on, did they just literally retract the camera, cut it, film the scene again, and then retract the camera and cut it again? It's so awful in places. No matter where you talk about, and you could sing this film's praises, but it's very like crudely shot or edited in a very bad way. To the point where it's noticeable.
Like, it's a great movie. They really did like kind of the best that they could with what they had, and like for a first movie and for it being like an indie movie and stuff like that, I think it is very good. And like I think that's the thing, looking back on these things, that's the charm. That's why we like Dracula now still, is because it's like comforting to see kind of how hokey everything is. You know?
Yeah.
It's like the entire appeal.
It really is. It's just like when it comes to these films, like especially like you said, like you have a warm place in your heart for it, no matter like how hokey cokey it is, you know. You can laugh at it, but you can also praise it for the fact that it is like a flag bearing film for like a whole new way of viewing horror, you know. So definitely with this
film,
for
it's like
sure.
It's the first.
Yeah.
You know,
it did it first. You can't
and like
undo
it's
it.
weird. Like I know I'm kind of like doting all over this, but it's like it is actually crazy to see like actually how little has evolved since this movie in terms of like zombie lore. Like it's kind of a perfect example of like if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
you know, like
absolutely.
they found a formula that works. And like pretty much the only thing, like we said earlier, it's like pretty much the only thing that's changed is zombies in more vast numbers and gore. And maybe they get faster, but I think that's almost kind of just a 28 Days Later thing.
Yeah, I like things like The Walking Dead and things like that. They don't run; they just walk. So I think it's very zombies, now how much I praise it. Like things like World War Z. That would be like, in my opinion, that's a way to kind of really scare the shit out of you with like thousands and thousands of zombies, because those scenes where they're running at someone and then they just like they end up hitting a wall. It's in Jerusalem or something like that. They end up hitting a wall and they like pile up in thousands of bodies as they're running after you. That is fucking terrifying. And then obviously those like those famous
like
scenes.
The idea of like that group itself being like an actual physical kind of virus almost.
Yeah.
The idea of just like not just being infected with the virus, but the idea that like the human body will kind of just like once you can't feel pain, it will just kind of like throw itself or whatever it needs to.
Yeah.
Like break itself, distort it, and whatever. I thought like that scene. Yeah, I think it's Jerusalem where all the zombies just up on top of each other. I thought that was real clever.
Yeah, and it's a lot more scarier because like if you were to put those zombies in this film, like they wouldn't last 5 minutes in that house. They'd be gone. So yeah, it's a thing. And then obviously, like you mentioned, 28 Days Later, where it did. I would give it to Danny Boyle, like he did flip the whole zombie genre on its head by like making them more ferocious, more mean, more gory, and then obviously the fact that they're literally sprinting after you. Yeah.
Like with these zombies, because it's in the countryside, we don't get the sense that there's going to be like thousands of these things. The idea that like pretty much the next day we get this like mob being like, yeah, we took care of them.
Yeah,
and, like,
in an afternoon.
It's like handguns and like able to just like beat these zombies up almost. But like, and like 28 Days Later, it's actually one of the only zombie movies to ever like really, really like freak me out.
Yeah.
Just because like with these zombies, you could walk around them if you really needed to.
Yeah.
Like Ben even says, which I would love to see filmed as like a short, where he's at the diner at like the kind of gas station or whatever. Like
yes, that. He ran like thousands of them over. Yeah.
Past, and there was like 30 or so of them like chasing past this thing, like chasing the truck.
Yeah.
And then he looks back to the diner, and the diner's empty and nobody's there. And then he notices that like slowly the entire place has just been circled.
Yeah.
I'm like, that so creepy. Yeah. Like it's so good. And but no, the idea that like Danny Boyle, like 28 Days Later, I would be fucked. Yeah. Like there's no way I'm surviving that. Whatsoever. But with these, yeah, you feel like you could really kind of just like, excuse me, and just like tiptoe around them. Yeah, you know, yeah. Like they'd be more of an inconvenience than like a threat.
You know what's not what is an inconvenience and a threat? Fucking Karen. that little shit. That fucking little shit. She literally picks up a fucking garden trowel and stabs the fuck out of her mother. I cannot get over the like how do I say it, like these sort of echoey like almost dubbed over screams, these continuous like weird
like orca whales, you know. Like this movie becomes very trippy for a moment.
Like it's nearly like 30 seconds.
I'm like, they show
blood everywhere. Step. Yeah,
and they show it going in.
And
I
she's
also
dead.
really did like this with her character. I really enjoyed this with her character. I thought she was like kind of funny and very like.
Yeah, she's done. Yeah.
Whatever stuff. Yeah.
I left a pot roast on the goddamn hob.
Also featuring hair very like mine.
Yeah.
Very like kind of like half up down, but up in the front, down in the back.
She's very much that character where she's like, she just feels mildly inconvenienced by literally everything that's going on. Like she had a book club meeting earlier, you know?
Yeah, she just came from doing this somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, she just managed to do this in another town. Like, yeah, you very much so get the sense that she's like, this shit again. Bro.
Yeah. She's sitting there most of the time like, is it fucking Miller time yet? Like, let's get this shit wrapped up.
Down here and sit with her.
Yeah. Yeah. She's fucking sick of her daughter. Can Karen die yet, or can we go?
Karen is only like in this movie, like we only see her like 3 times.
Yeah.
Once when she's lying there, twice when somebody checks on her, and then when she's literally killing both of her parents.
Yeah.
And just before this, we get a shot of after the car is blown up, we get all these zombies, and this is the scene I was talking about earlier, where we get kind of a bunch of zombies all sitting around outside the house, eating like ribs,
yeah.
And like we get a shot of like an arm, like just like somebody's real arm with them off screen. With some like meat draped like over the arm, and you can see somebody just biting it off. Works. It does work. It actually is very, very effective. I think it doesn't look as hokey as we're like kind of selling it to be.
And I think it's due to that filming it in black and white for sure. Like it does pose those benefits of almost using the film to hide the flaws of the cheapness of it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like George A. Romero was like technically like a genius. Like
Yeah.
he's I believe he's uncredited in this movie as the cinematographer, but like being able to kind of cover your seams and really make a good movie.
Yeah.
It's also kind of at this point where the horde really starts to kind of take over. We get very slowly and gradually through the movie that like more and more zombies are kind of just gathering outside.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly Barbara's okay. Barbara just wakes up from her from like catatonia and is like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be helping in this movie. Remember, I'm on the poster. It just kind of like springs into action and is trying to help Ben like ward off the horde. That was unintentional.
The horde
and then
of
she
10
just kind of
zombies.
gets like snatched out of the house by Johnny. Johnny just kind of shows up and they just get her out of the house and she's gone, and that's the end of Barbara in this movie. They just pull her outside.
I really love this because, like, number one, she technically does abandon him, even though, like, for most of the part before she turns into that catatonic state, she's like insistent that Johnny is still alive. Even though technically, yes, he is, but he's a zombie, he's still alive. So it doesn't make sense to me that, like, if she was convinced he's still alive, that she would have just up and left him. I mean, you are her brother.
Man. Like, he's dead in a way.
Yeah.
You know, like being very vague.
And then, yeah, like you said, she just completely, like, just disappears in the film altogether. Yeah.
And so Ben basically like goes into the cellar and just kind of like waits out. Oh no, he shoots the parents because we actually get to see the dad without his arm, which again is like kind of shocking to see like in a movie from here. It's got an arm off.
Yeah.
And he like shoots both of them and then kind of just waits around until the next day. So, like, that's the thing. It actually hold on, I'm literally threatening you. I'm holding myself like this. So, like, actually being smart is showing that Ben ultimately would have been wrong, that Harry was right. But if we just wait in this fucking cellar, the zombies will get bored, which is just what happens. The zombies just leave. The zombies just decide to leave.
They, like... I know that Karen, fucking Karen, bro. Karen is the first one, because when Ben disappears down at the, Karen is the first one banging up against the door. And I did notice this. All the zombies, including the Cemetery Man, which I still think is a really cool title for a zombie, including the Cemetery Man, does walk straight up to that door and start banging on it. I don't know if you noticed it, but there's a door right next to that door cellar, and Karen just kind of moves off to that door. I'm going to put it up. I swear to God, I'm going to put this up. She literally just, like, exit stage left. She just disappears from frame. She's like, okay, I'll get out of here, and then the rest of these zombies will knock the door in. Yeah, very that.
We have a couple of scenes like that, though, where people kind of, like, fuck up a little bit, and, like, you can tell that they were like, okay, just come with it. Like, we can't afford to, like, shoot this again.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple of scenes on the news, the like, newscaster completely, like, fucks up his line and just, like, picks right back up.
Yeah.
Like, instead of just, like, cutting there and starting with the take that worked, they leave it in. And he fucked up his line.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, again, like, it's hokey and cokey as you fucking like, but, like, there ain't nothing like Night of the Living Dead, you know, really ain't nothing like it.
No. And then we basically get these scenes of, like, it's like what like appears to be like a really like old style like mobster and like a news crew and like the local police force or whatever like that. And they're basically like,
the
we can get them out of here in a day. And like they're kind of just like acting like these are like I don't know, like a couple of like wild dogs that have been let loose.
Yeah.
They're just walking around with like
Remington rifles
and like guns, and shit like this. Okay, Lana Del Rey stan. And they're kind of just going around and they're like, yeah, we killed like 40 of them today. Like, we get the sense that this is going to be over in like a week and like everything is just going to be gone.
I was literally just about to say this, but your man, when they're doing like the news crew interview of the sheriff, he literally says like, yeah, we'll have it done in an afternoon. Like, he literally says, like, because it's meant to be apparently isolated to this area, and he's like, yeah, we've cleared off a lot of them, we'll probably have it done by this afternoon. I'm like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah, it's really not like that big of an, like, they don't even call it in the army. It's literally done by like locals.
Yeah.
And then we kind of get to the end where Ben has been just like sitting in this house for like a couple, like this whole thing takes place over like, it's literally one night singular of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
It's not a couple of nights of the Living Dead. It's one night total. Like, it's been less than 24 hours since Barbara was attacked in the graveyard. And then we kind of get Ben. He's like, okay, well, fuck this. Like, he doesn't hear any more noise or anything, and decides to like go up the stairs. Like and there is still zombies on the property, I think, like just kind of
there are,
like further about. For lack of a better word, the lynch mob that's been set up, like the zombies being the ones that are being lynched at this point. Show up at the door, and I also again I remember this being like more outrightly like, oh, that's a racist ending. But they kind of don't even see him. They kind of kill him just because he's moving. I was just gonna say, spoiler alert, Ben is killed. But because like he's kind of he's coming out of the house like very slowly, and we do get the sense that like they don't actually even see his face. They just shoot him because
he moved.
He's moving.
But
the imagery that comes along with it, and the imagery that shows up after the fact of these people kind of posing with Ben's body like it's a trophy, it does evoke the imagery of lynchings. And it's very sad. This man managed to survive the entire night and to like put his own life at risk to help all these people. And then to just be kind of unceremoniously killed. But I like the idea that it's not a happy ending.
This is this whole kind of like thought process, like again you said it earlier that Romero refutes the fact that it's anything really to do with race, but like I am fully convinced that it is because
it is. I don't think it was originally written that way.
I legit don't think it is at all. I
think just once he given the materials that he had,
like one of the film's most famous elements is its grim ending, in which Ben, you know, having survived the night, is shot by the sheriff's like you said, for lack of a better word, zombie lynch mob. And is thrown into a fire. And at one point there was a happy ending for this film considered, but Jones, Dwayne, the guy who plays Ben, fought against it. Now I actually have the quote from him. He says, I convinced George that the black community would rather see me dead than saved, after all that had gone on, in a corny and symbolically confusing way. The heroes never die in American movies. The jolt of that and the double jolt of the hero being black seemed like a double-barreled whammy. And I 100% agree, because like again, you go to the movies for sort of like an escape from reality. You suspend disbelief for a time of period when you're watching films. But I wholeheartedly agree with him there. Like again, he was, whether or not the character was written to be a black man, he really kind of pushed for to get a message out there, and I totally agree with it. The fact that this ending is so grim, and like you said, like those images almost like posing as if Ben is a trophy that they collected. Now again, obviously they were just zombie hunters, but like you can't ignore it. You just can't ignore the fact that there's very obvious parallels with real life situations to this film, and it does have a very strong message to it.
Very definitely. It's I think the thing that really does kind of like hit the nail on the head and solidify it is like it almost could have been left a little bit more ambiguous, and people might not have talked about it as much. If we hadn't got the photographs of the aftermath after killed, because this is where the real lynching imagery when it kind of comes into it,
Yeah.
where it's like, especially like the time period, you cannot help but think these things when you see a black man dead kind of at the feet
of white men,
locals
exactly.
and policemen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we said, I think like I don't think George Romero wrote this movie um with that in mind, but I think like once given the materials, as in like once he got the actors that he got, and once um everything kind of came a little bit more into perspective, it's like it would have been a wasted opportunity to kind of have um some kind of commentary, like social commentary, which would actually become synonymous with
the zombie genre.
Zombie movies. Is that um, like especially Romero zombie movies, is that like his movies always have something to say about the time period. We get into Dawn of the Dead with consumerism. It all takes place in a shopping mall. We kind of I think like these movies are a lot more than just like stupid splatterfests. Like there is a lot more to be said. And I think this movie is very excellently made. And I always am a fan of a grim ending. I think it would have been corny if everybody had survived in the house.
Yeah, and just like danced away into the
and
sunset.
It's also a weird thing. Yeah, and it also is a weird thing that it's like these men are not bad. Like he's not killed by villains. Like the imagery is obviously there, but it's like they didn't show up to the house being like, "There's a black guy in here. We're gonna fucking like get him or whatever like that." It's like they are just out here, kind of cleaning up, trying to like save the community, I guess, like that.
Yeah, the one.
So there is no bad guy ultimately.
Yeah. The one photograph that really does stick out to me is that introductory photograph of the Hook. Because they grab him. His dead body out of the house with hooks into his chest, and I think number one, that's more grotesque to me. Like that one image is more grotesque to me than anything that came before it prior in the movie. It's more frightening because ironically that is more real than the horror of the zombies. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that his literal corpse is laid down at the feet of these white men it's a very powerful image. And like you were saying like earlier there, it's sort of hard to agree with Romero when he says like he refutes it and say this, but when you can clearly see that imagery and it's being put there in front of you, and then obviously it's turned into a pyre at the end, like where he's just thrown onto a burning pyre with other other zombies. Like it's just like the imagery is undeniable.
Yeah, and again, I do think like a lot of people kind of refute that it's like, really, George, like really you did know, but it's like, well, no, I do definitely agree that like I don't think he like originally like wrote this with that in mind. Again, like we kind of like with Candyman, it's like the original Clive Barker source material for Candyman is not written as a black man, but it's just kind of like when you can pull these parallels, because I believe the original Candyman is written to be a classist thing, not to be a racist thing. But then it works so well once these kind of things, and like again, I do appreciate that George Romero was able to take on what his actors had to say and say like, look, I think that like people would appreciate it a whole lot more this way, and it does come through. It comes through that like this movie is really, really iconic and really, really groundbreaking for having a black protagonist, basically, and having a black hero, and have it not be the issue. But then again, making it all the more, like I always say, the entire point of horror is to horrify you. It's not supposed to make you feel comfortable. And I think leaving it on such a bleak tone, especially for the time period, again, like I said earlier, this is very much so a outside of just being a big stepping stone for horror, it's a big kind of stepping stone for modern cinema as a whole. Like the bad guy wins. Not even the bad guy wins. It's just the good guy loses. Like our hero loses,
Yeah, for sure. I just think It's definitely effective and definitely lucrative for like at least that genre, or at least on a minuscule budget for that genre. You know, when you compare it to like what you get nowadays versus what that was, like it's just really, really good. So yeah, that is The Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero.
Night of the Living Dead. Yeah.
1968. You know, Light of the Living Dead. It's amazing.
I remember it well.
Yeah. So, what have we got next week, Lee? What next horrors are we working on?
We've got another Stephen King classic, quote unquote classic. We've got Pet Sematary next week.
Pet Sematary.
Kind of a zombie double feature if you want to listen to these two back to back.
Double feature.
That was unintentional, by the way.
Yeah, so let us know what you think. If you want us to retrospect or review any movies that you like, make sure to stick them down below in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, and follow us on our Instagram for more funny, weird content and the latest news, of course. So yeah, we've been they're here. So yeah,
we also just before we finish, we fully didn't record an intro. We didn't do all that shit at the start.
We didn't.
We just did like 12 shitty, terrible jokes and then went
just in case. We are There Here podcast. Just in case. A discussion, disembowelment of everything. Horror. All that good stuff.
Okay, guys. Unpleasant dreams.
Yeah. Go get the fuck out of here with your